Welcome to the League of Women Voters Washington Speak Up School. My name is Pat Bennett Foreman, and I serve on the Speak Up School writing team. Today, I'm presenting Module 4, Testimony. The purpose of the Speak Up Schools is to provide you, the participant, with background information and skills to help ensure that the testimony you give before the Redistricting Commission is effective, to help you feel comfortable and confident about testifying, and empowered to speak before the commissioners. The skills presented in this video are also applicable to any situation in which you are speaking to a decision maker, whether it's a one-on-one meeting or in front of a large audience. But let's not get the cart before the horse. Before you can testify, you need to plan and create your presentation. Testimony comes before testifying. And this video session will focus on testimony. In this module, we'll learn the hows of writing effective testimony. Our goal is to help you feel comfortable with putting together a testimony statement by reviewing examples of written testimony and discussing the components that make it effective. 2, by examining a variety of tools to make writing a testimonial statement easier, and by sharing best practices. Now, we recognize that some of our viewers are new at this and may not have a clue about how to go about it. Others have done it a couple of times, but perhaps by the seat of their pants and in a less than structured format. Some of you are comfortable, but maybe would like to fine-tune your testimonies. And some of you have considerable experience that we could all learn from. Regardless of where you are on this spectrum, there are certain practices that will assist you to make your presentation more impactful. Your testimony is important. Your perspective needs to be shared. Your views actually are welcomed by the commissioners. But in the past, the commissioners found that some of the testimony provided was unclear, imprecise, and not detailed enough to give them any direction. So by practicing the pointers in this video, the power of your voice will be maximized. Well, just what is testimony? The dictionary definition indicates that a testimony is a declaration or statement given in evidence of a position. We note 2 key features of testimony. 1, it's a written document. 2, testimony contains the content or script of what you will say when testifying, or the content of what you're going to submit in writing. Testifying is the delivery of your testimony. Testimony is written. Testifying is oral and comes after you've written your testimony. What makes for good testimony? This example of written testimony was submitted by Patsy Whitefoot, an esteemed elder of the Yakima Nation. Patsy was writing to State Senator Sam Hunt, asking for his support in enhancing the Redistricting Commission. You will note that Patsy has provided information about herself and her role in the tribe. She has clearly stated why she's writing, what she's asking for, and then has succinctly stated the reasons for her position. She also judiciously used boldface type to emphasize her points. From our example and from the literature about effective testimony, we know that there are certain building blocks that make a testimony effective. First, effective testimony establishes your credentials, who you are. Second, it clearly identifies the topic and purpose or critical point of your statement. Third, the best testimony tells a story that engages the audience, that is, the commissioners. Fourth, facts or evidence to support your points are succinctly provided. Consequences of not following your recommendations, if known, might be spelled out. And lastly, effective testimony closes with a specific ask, what it is you want the commission to do. Let's take a little more in-depth look at each of these components. Establishing your credentials doesn't mean that you have to be a recognized expert or an elected official. It simply means that you let the commissioner know who you are, and especially that you're a constituent. Give your name, where you live, what district you vote in. In your written statement, which you'll give to the commissioners after you testify, provide contact information, your address, phone, email. And if you represent more than yourself, identify the name of the group and tell a little bit about them. For example, your neighborhood council or a tribal affiliation or some other civic group that you might be representing. Just be sure that, in fact, you are authorized to represent that group. As soon as you introduced yourself, tell the commission why you're speaking to them. What's the issue or concern? If you had one thing that you wanted the commissioners to remember from your presentation, what would that be? So this should be a simple one-sentence statement such as, I'm here to talk to you about. Now, one of the most effective means of being sure that you're remembered and that your message is heard is to tell a personal story about why this issue is so important to you. Telling a story about something that impacts you personally creates empathy with the audience, and in this case, with the commissioners. Your story can help to build a relationship with the commissioners. Remember that people in a relationship care about each other, and you want the commissioners to care about you and your issue. A personal story not only illustrates the point you're making, but it adds validity or justification to your presence. In a way, your story states your right to be there asking something of the decision makers. And a personal story will help the audience remember you and your point. It makes your testimony more memorable. But it's not enough to identify your issue and to tell a story. Good testimony also gives the reader or listener some critical facts and details to support the position. After all, the commissioners are going to need facts to support the stances or decisions that they'll ultimately take with the redistricting maps. Your facts should be research-based. The information provided in the Data Lenses module can give you some facts and details, such as the percentage of minorities in your district. So can the MAPS project. What happens to voter strength if you draw lines a certain way, like you propose? And attaching a map to with the redistricting lines that you're suggesting is also helpful. If there are consequences to the position you're taking, either positive or negative, be sure to briefly list them. This is especially important if the community is benefited by your proposed change. Making people happy with the commissioners is always a desired outcome from the perspective of the commissioners. So they welcome information on consequences. As you close your written testimony, be sure to specify the ask. Tell the commissioners exactly what you want them to do, to consider, to change. Keep it short and simple, because you want them to remember your ask. And finally, thank them for their time and acknowledge the difficult task that they have to manage in trying to respond to so many varying ideas and requests. And while it's unlikely, it might happen that a commissioner will have a question for you or raise a point that's counter to your arguments. If possible, know in advance what the issues are. For example, the pros and cons of grouping low-income voters into one district. If you're asked a question that you don't have an answer to, just acknowledge that you don't know, and then offer to get back to the commissioners with the answer. This wonderful handout is a very handy way to remember the essential components we have just covered. The critical point, or excuse me, introducing yourself and establishing your credentials. Then, the critical point. What's the issue you're addressing? The "I'm here to talk about" statement. Third, what makes this issue important to you? Why you care about it? What's your story? Fourth, it's the evidence or facts that you have. These facts are essentially why the commissioners should care about this issue. Include consequences of not doing as you ask. And finally, the ask. Tell them what you want them to do, specific and succinctly. These 5 components, if used in your testimony, will result in clear, effective testimony. So now that you have some tips on the parts that you need in an effective testimony, it's time to focus more on the content. The what do you say and how do you say it? And while we're not going to spell out any positions for you to take when you testify, we hope that by the end of this session, you'll be comfortable in knowing where you might find some content information and how to put it all in writing. To create your testimony, you'll use your story and evidence to write out a paragraph summary. Use clear, simple language. Keep your sentences short. Arrange your paper in the order of the 5 elements. Your credentials, that is your name, your city, your legislative district, your issue, your story, the facts that support it, and the ask that you have of the commissioners. Limit yourself to 1 page from 300 to 500 words because 1 minute of oral testimony takes about 150 words. And so you won't have time to read more than 1 page in your when you testify. And use the templates to guide your writing, to keep you organized and to make sure that you've included all the elements that you need and to allow you time to practice with a friend before you give your presentation. Let's look now at some tools that will help you write your testimony. The first template is useful for those with limited experience in writing testimony. The quick and easy testimony fill-in form is already in paragraph form, and it provides an alternative way to quickly write down your testimonial statement. Just fill in the blanks. It follows the order of testimony essentials, and it prompts the user on each point. My name is. I vote in such and such a district, in such and such a city. I would like to draw your attention to the issue of. In my neighborhood, this is where you get to tell your story, and this effectively means these facts support it. I ask you to. This form and the others may be found at the League of Women Voters Washington.org Speak Up School website and is available for you to download anytime and use. If you're more comfortable with writing testimony, you may find this next template a useful way to be reminded of the essential components you want to include in your written testimony. This quick guide asks key questions, the answers to which can form the basis of your testimony in a way that covers all of the essential elements. It also allows you more flexibility in how you organize your written document. The questions ask the basics. Who are you? Why are you here? Why is it that you want to testify? What's the critical point you want them to remember? What data or evidence do you have? What's your story? What's your ask? And what are the consequences of not doing your ask? The final template, the template for legislative contacts, is the formal document for submitting material to the commissioners. You might go through all the trouble of writing your testimony and turning it into a script only to find out that you've been given 30 seconds to speak. So you want to make sure that the commissioners receive your full testimony. By sending this 1-page position paper to them, the commissioners will have all the points and all the supporting data in your testimony, even if you didn't get to say it when testifying. And this written testimony can be mailed or submitted online. The most difficult part about writing testimony for many people is the story. Really, the story is telling why this issue is important to you, how you or your neighbors have been impacted by the existing circumstances. Some folks find it easier to tell their story if they use a story map or an outline. And it's best if you can somehow personalize the story. For example, if your community is split by the current lines, give an example of when that had a negative impact on you or your neighbors. If current boundaries negate your vote, share an example. It's helpful if you can weave a fact or two into your story, but keep it brief. Typically, the story should take no more than 1 minute to tell. Be authentic, be yourself. Don't be afraid to use humor if that's who you are, but please be respectful. Many of you will want to know where to find information and facts for the evidence portion of your testimony. Best practices suggest that, one, you use the language from the law that is guiding the Redistricting Commission's work. Make your ask easy for them. When you use the language that they have to follow, it makes it easier for them to try and incorporate your ideas. Talk to your neighbors and your community looking for common themes. Imagine the power of a statement made to the commissioners, something like, 20 of my neighbors agree. 3, use the redistricting maps data and the data lenses information. You don't have to recreate the wheel. It's there. Find what works for your position. And likewise, check out the papers and information from organizations that have websites that study these issues. They have people who are paid to know these facts and consequences, and they're happy to share with you. Just a quick review then as we wrap things up. People who have experience giving and writing testimony recommend the following. 1, attach a map to your testimony. 2, keep it brief and to the point. 3, close your testimony with a specific ask. And finally, be sure to submit a written copy to the commissioners. Now, a word about do's and don'ts. Your written testimony, the document, should be brief and easy to read. So do use bullets that give visual appeal. Use those in the facts section rather than lengthy paragraphs. Be sure to use and highlight key words. Use the commissioner's own priorities for those keywords. Do use facts. The commissioners need justification for their actions. And do thank them for the job that they have before them. It's not easy. Don't make accusations or partisan comments. It only turns off the audience and irritates the commissioners. And finally, don't go over your space and time limitations. About 1 page is good. The commissioners don't have time to read more than that, frankly. And when you turn your testimony into your testifying script, you won't have time to say more than what can fit on 1 page. The typical time for the Redistricting Commission is 3 minutes. And since a comfortable speaking pace is about 150 words a minute, you will likely not be able to speak more than about 400 words or 1 page during your testifying time. And it may get cut shorter than that. So thank you for viewing this module. I hope you're feeling more comfortable about the task ahead. We encourage you to play around with the templates and practice putting the 5 elements of effective testimony into your work. Your next steps will be to actually research and determine your position, and then turn that into a written document. Feel free to use one of the templates provided. Then you'll want to turn your written testimony into a script for testifying. Actually, maybe several scripts in case you do get one of those short sessions. Module 5 video is designed to give you tips and tools on presentation skills for the actual testifying event. I want to thank you for your time in viewing this video. All of the templates that were used in the video are available by going to the League of Women Voters Washington.org Speak Up School website at this address, lwvwa.org/speakup. Scroll to the module PowerPoints and handouts to download copies. Best wishes to you in all your endeavors in giving testimony to decision makers.